The man discovered something strange during the autopsy. He actually pulled a capsule out of the victim's head. He twisted open the shell of the capsule. Inside was a tiny piece of paper, but it was impossible to see clearly with the naked eye. He placed the paper under a microscope, but he never expected the message on the paper to stun him on the spot. It had his daughter's name and phone number written on it. The body belonged to a 50-year-old stranger. He could not imagine how this man was connected to his daughter. To avoid raising suspicion from co-workers, he quickly copied down the number, then hid in the restroom in fear. Nick dialed the number with trembling hands.
Dad! Please help me! Please! I am gonna die, Dad! He's gonna kill me! If you don't do what he says! He's controlling you every step of the way! He said, just the way you got this message better make you think! You know all the cops said. I know, but you're not allowed to talk to anyone. You understand? Wait for Eric! He'll tell you what to do next. You can't tell anyone.
Nick felt helpless and desperate. He had no idea who he had offended, but just then a colleague came looking for him. The man asked what was inside the capsule, but for his daughter Nick could only lie. He claimed it was empty. Only then did the colleague leave. Nick returned to his office. He listened to the call recording over and over, but the man named Eric never called back, so he dialed his daughter's number again, but a woman's voice answered. She said her name was Lisa, and that Eric was probably already dead, because a man was lying in front of her, with Eric's name written on his clothes. The woman said she had just passed by the beach, and heard a phone ringing on the body. She gathered her courage and searched for a long time, and the phone showed 16 missed calls. The kidnappers told her to wait for Eric's instructions. But why would he die on the beach? Thinking of the body he just examined, Nick hurried out of the office nervously. He begged Lisa not to call the police, and told her about his daughter. Although it all sounded unbelievable, Nick believed the body must hold clues from the kidnappers. He hoped Lisa could go to the tavern to find his friend working in the hospital morgue. Nick rushed downstairs, just in time to see the intern William. He kindly offered Nick a ride. Lisa also arrived at the bar. After receiving Nick's message, they drove together to the beach. They dragged the body back to the hospital where the long hallways felt eerie, making Lisa feel uneasy. Meanwhile, Nick ran into trouble because the blizzard was too strong. All trains to the island were cancelled. He could only drive there himself, but this would delay him for a long time. To find clues to his daughter as soon as possible, Nick hoped they could help examine the body, but his friend said he fainted at the sight of blood, so the difficult task fell to Lisa. Lisa initially wanted to refuse, but Nick said 2 murders had already happened. Now it was not only to save his daughter, but also to stop the killer from striking again. Lisa was indeed convinced by Nick. She closed her eyes and held her breath, then decisively unzipped the body bag. Under Nick's remote guidance, Lisa cut open the man's clothing. Other than a key hanging on his chest, there were no more clues. To determine the cause of death, Nick told her to lift the man's eyelids. When she saw blotches of red and marks around his neck, Nick concluded he had been strangled. Then he told Lisa to examine the mouth, but when she removed the dentures, she discovered his tongue had been cut off, and there was a yellow capsule in his throat. After she opened the capsule, inside was a photo of an old man. Her friend recognized him immediately. The old man was a resident of the island. When Nick heard the name, he could not recall any connection, so he asked his assistant to look up the woman's identity. The woman in the photo had been a judge, and had retired to live on the island. Nick finally remembered their only connection, a murder case 10 years ago, and in that case, the victim was his colleague Jack's daughter. Nick dared not think further. He hurriedly told William to go to Jack's house. Meanwhile, his friend and Lisa found the retired judge, but she had already been killed. Her death was even more bizarre. They had no choice but to bring the body back to the morgue. Just as Lisa was about to begin the examination, the lights in the room began flickering. Her friend had to check the electrical room, but soon after, the lights went completely out. Lisa turned on her flashlight, and heard footsteps in the hallway. She hid in the corner trembling. Finally the backup power came on, but another sound came from the door. She gripped the scalpel tightly and approached. Suddenly the steel door opened. It was her friend who came back, but a knife was stuck in his shoulder. He collapsed in front of Lisa, just as she was about to check his wound. The key in the door suddenly began to turn. Terrified, Lisa opened a freezer and hid inside. Meanwhile, Nick arrived at Jack's house. Seeing the walls covered with photos triggered his memories. 10 years ago Jack's daughter hanged herself, and Nick was the coroner back then. Although everyone knew she had been driven to suicide, there was not enough evidence to convict the culprit. Jack wanted Nick to help him falsify the report, but no matter how he begged, Nick refused. The judge believed there was no causal link, and sentenced the suspect to 3.5 years. Jack was furious with the verdict. Nick felt guilty ever since. From the photos on the wall, after the suspect was released, Jack had been watching him secretly. At that moment Nick noticed a severed tongue on the table, with Eric's name written on it. Clearly Jack avenged his daughter in his own way, but how was this connected to his own daughter's kidnapping? Follow me for the next part.